when we look back at history, many of you would have known one of my dear friends who expired, Anupam Mishra, who showed us that, how, communities in Rajasthan, where water is so very scarce, but they engineered the sand dunes to such a manner that they never faced water problems. Until we started, more serious exploitation and also, being a culprit myself, finding some oil there and drilling for oil in that area, which has, exhausted all the other drinking water above the oil. So what we are finding is like a desert ecosystem, the communities had their own way of, dealing with water. If you go high up in the Himalayas, from Lahore, Spiti, Kinnaur, the cold deserts in India, people have their own, not only water management systems, but irrigation systems, which enable them in very tough conditions to be able to irrigate their land. And today, if Kinnaur and Lahore, Spiti and these areas produce some of the best apples, peas, and several other crops, it's largely because of the community's ability to manage water resources in such a kind of situation. From that high altitude, if you look, in the central Himalayas, we had a wonderful, system where, there were ponds created at the, at the top of the watershed. And these slowly seeped in order to, feed the springs. All across Uttarakhand, you will find these kind of water bodies, which were, subsequently seeping in, and therefore there were a lot of springs. Today, when we are expanding our roads, we are, drilling for dams underneath this. Many of the springs are getting lost. And since, when a spring is lost, the particular land or the particular area is not affected. Nobody even thinks like if there is a problem for them. So when a highway, the Char Dham highway is made, just between Rishikesh and a place called Khadi, which is about 30 kilometers from Rishikesh, more than 32 springs, which I have personally mapped, are no longer existing. And these were springs that were feeding several villages downstream. So people had their own, this chals and khals, as they call, which where they were, enabling to store. And what they used to do was, in the summertime when the water was less, they would allow their animals to wallow in it. And given that, kind of mud and, the cow dung, the seepage was very low. And what they used to do was, with the springs, even if the rainfall is delayed, they used to build their paddy nursery so that 15-20 days of delay, which in the hills, if you sow 15 days late, you might actually have a drop of 40% in your productivity. That was being managed by, like setting up the nursery collectively close to the spring and then replanting it. How like rainwater could be equitable. Another very, remarkable personality in our country, whom we lost, Dr. P.R. Mishra. Many of you would have heard about the Sukumajari experiment. When the Sukna lake was, getting silted, Dr. P.R. Mishra, who used to be the director of the Soil Conservation Institute there, he said, let us go to the catchment. And he went to the catchment and he found that, and he used to say, naked hills, then there will be no water and there will be naked people on the plains. You will have nothing with you. So what he did was, he said, let us grow fodder, let us grow things in the catchment, And he said every household in the catchment deserves the rainfall that it gets. So whether you had land or whether you did not have land, the quantum of rain that came in, which translated in the public land or the common lands into fodder, was given to people so that they could feed their animal and produce milk, and that became an important livelihood for people. And it also reduced siltation into the Sukna Lake. We have enormous examples like as we come down between the Shivaliks and this thing on the plains. I have not seen a much better and more nuanced large scale water management system than the Bodo Kacharis had been doing. Then last I studied them, that's also more than now 2 decades. There was a 242-kilometer long open canal system, which was purely managed by the communities. And they understood the nature of the terrain, the ecosystem there. And when, if you look at the physiography, from the foothills of Himalayas to like Ganga Sagar, it might be as flat as a plain table. But when you look at the Himalayas, you suddenly find the altitude dropping from 18,000, 22,000 feet to 190, 200 feet like in Rishikesh. So when water comes out of the Shivalik, they move into the Bhabar Tarai area. The Bhabar is a boulder bed and the water used to seep in. And the Tarai used to be the moist area where before the British decimated the Tarai forest, they used to say that it was impossible for anyone to go to the Char Dham because either they would be killed by wild animals or by mosquitoes, or by malaria, because that Tarai belt was a swampy land which held the water. And what the Bodo Kacharis did was, they took a river and right in the Shivalik hills, they pushed the water to the water divides and then brought it back to the river through extensive open canal systems. And they had what they call as the Dong Panchayat. So every village had a Dong Panchayat. A longer system which had a stream coming across, which was serving several villages, had a Dong Samiti. And every year, annually, twice they would meet. Some 300, 400 villages would come together and meet and decide. And at the village level, every household had both the right to use water, but also had a duty that it would desilt or put a bamboo filter in some place, had specific kind of roles to be played on a day-to-day basis in the village. So these are excellent systems we had. But no, and similarly, if you look at a city like Trivandrum, Trivandrum had very good drinking water supply until possibly 30 years ago, where you can open a tap and drink water, or even closer. But what's happening to the urban water systems is the other point I wanted to touch was that one of the things that has happened historically is when we started accumulating water. Earlier, there were small kind of storages which may have been like check dams or log dams. But the moment we started building large reservoirs, it has gone into a new era of water accumulation and the decisions getting far removed. So today, if we see from the Tarbela Dam, Bhakra Dam, which were built around the same time historically, We have the Indus water problem. We have, almost all the rivers. Today, we are mindlessly building dams in Arunachal Pradesh in the context saying that, we would be a first user, and therefore, China might be restrained in not being able to build dams there. I don't know how far it is realistic, but that is the kind of argument that we are being provided as to why we have to build 118 dams in the rivers of Arunachal Pradesh, or for instance on the Kishan Ganga in Kashmir.